and download it. Enjoy world-class radio at its best, anytime, anywhere. Become a Freedom Apper today.
Reliable, dependable, Delta. If you live here in St. Kitts and your tank on E, there's only one place that you should be. Maybe driving in Nevis and you need some fuel. Go straight to Delta. Don't be a fool. Get your cooking gas fast. All petroleum needs ULSD. Everyone in the region is shouting, Go Delta. Premium gasoline in a fully stocked C-store. So there's only one place you should be. Delta Petroleum, baby.
From the bench to the palm of your hand, Betgate Sports brings to you iGaming, the ultimate dual gaming experience. Sports and iGaming in one powerful platform, live and legal. Tap your screen, place a bet, spin the reels, cash out fast. No delays, pure excitement. BetCageSports.com. Download the app and sign up today. Play responsibly. Must be 21 and over. Proud sponsor of Cricket West Indies, where a percentage of every dollar played with Cage goes to Windies for cricket and cricket development.
RIA Easy Money Transfer Limited, located on West Independence Square Street, Bastyr, St. Kitts, and the Solomon Arcade, Nevis, offers you safe and reliable transfers at great low rates and fees to 507,000 locations worldwide, with a pickup time of just 15 minutes after your transfer. And for even more ease of doing business, we home deliver and direct bank deposits in selected countries. So if anytime you want to send money to family, friends, and loved ones, at RIA, we've got you covered with over 30 years of experience moving money quickly, efficiently, and securely across 160 countries. Give us a call at 465-3325 in St. Kitts or 469-3325 in Nevis. Opening hours Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 8:30 in Nevis, and on Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. RIA Easy Money Transfer Limited.
Back to school shouldn't meet you unprepared. St. Kitts Credit Union's Back to School Loan helps you borrow up to $10,000 with flexible repayment plans, fast approval, supportive terms. Invest in your child's future with confidence, because every child deserves a strong start. Start today at www.skccu.com or call 465-2272. SKCU, invested in their future with you.
Hey, Webmaster here. I stay connected to Freedom with the Freedom SKN app. Simply search for the Freedom app in the Android's Play Store or the Apple's App Store and download it. Enjoy world-class radio at its best, anytime, anywhere. Become a Freedom Apper today.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to my listeners wherever you are. Those in St. Kitts, those in Nevis, and I know I have some beautiful, loyal listeners all over the Caribbean and even in North America. Last week we had a beautiful time with my friend in Montserrat, and we had a great talk because you raised some beautiful issues, and I want to just say to you, I'm happy that you are listening. I'm glad that you are listening to my program, and I thank you very much for participating and for your sharing your education. It is 1:45 p.m. in Sugar City, St. Kitts. We are experiencing a peculiar Caribbean day. Yes, it's peculiar Caribbean day. When I wake up this morning, I was glad. I said it's going to rain because I saw the mass of clouds all over. And I said, look, I'm just waiting for it to get heavy because I want that rain for my vegetables. But then I realized that it's not going to rain. And then I was informed by those who know more geography than I know that what I see out there, or what you see out there, the blanket of Sahara dust. And what makes it very troubling today is the fact that it's very windy, unlike yesterday. Yesterday it was burning hot. There was hardly a breeze. Today is very windy, so I was told by health specialists that people who have respiratory problems, they would be advised to avoid the outdoors. This Sahara dust can be very bad for them. You are listening to Freedom FM 106.5, world-class radio at its best. This is Issues with your host, Coach Adrian, and it's always great to have you on my show. As usual, I always ask you to allow me to reach out before we introduce our topic. Just simply to say that I hope this will be the final time that I am making the announcement, because I'm sure by now many of my listeners know that we have switched or rescheduled from Thursday to Monday. So Issues is on Mondays, very same time, 1:40 p.m. to 3:40 p.m. And of course, I thank you so much for being with me and for changing your timetable. Now, as I promised last week, our new approach, I said, wherever we stop in our discussion, I continue the following week so that we don't miss out on the relevant issues. So before I start, I'm hoping to start our new series this week as I promised, but then I need to complete the discussion that we started last week. Last week, we did an update on the global trade war, and then we stopped just before we looked at the impact thus far of the global tariff, that is the taxes on imports, that is particularly imports entering the American territory, and the impact of that on the U.S. market to some extent, and to a limited extent, as the data coming on St. Kitts. What about the U.S. market? U.S. producer prices increase, according to the report, the highest increase in 3 years since July. And they said that the surge in the price, the cost of goods and services, is directly connected to the sweeping tariff. So the consumer price index, the CPI, it showed continued growth or increase, of course, and that is the general price increase in the economy. That is the report by Reuters as at the 14th of August 2025. Other reports, that is industry reports, that companies like Procter and Gamble, companies like Stanley Black and Decker, Adidas, and they are among the many companies, apart from these, that have increased their prices primarily due to the rising costs from the U.S. tariff on imported goods. And the report also says that a number of other companies are planning, they are looking at their accounting, and they are planning to raise their prices. In the area of wholesale and retail, U.S. consumers are already paying higher prices at retail outlets like Amazon, Home Depot, Walmart, Best Buy, Costco, and Target. Of course, this is what the report gave us. There are many more as the weeks go by, whatever. But what about St. Kitts? What is happening in the market in St. Kitts? I want to, first of all, express my appreciation, my thanks to the number of procurement managers, buyers, managers of wholesale and retail in St. Kitts, distributors, dealers, who took the time to speak with me. And many of them, I came to them without notice, and they did not turn me away. I want to just thank you all guys, and I want to let you know that the next time that I am coming to you, in most cases you gave me your cards, you gave me your contact, I'm going to call you. In most cases I told them that I am hoping to come back to them around late November or early December. So what is it that the market, those market makers said to me? What is it that they said about the impact thus far of the U.S. tariff on St. Kitts itself? And generally, they agreed that the price effect will have a lag. There will be a lag, and that's expected. And I'll explain that later on when we speak about the nature of the supply chain. So we expect that there will be a lag. You don't expect just a strong hike in price. They said that the anticipated inflationary effect is expected after 9 to 12 months. That these are the industry leaders speaking, and they are the one who knows. They are the one who do the procurement. They are the one who is in contact with the suppliers in America, and they have been doing that for some time. So they are the specialists. I have tremendous respect for them. That is why I go to them to learn from them. Yes, there are some things that you can only know if you have hands-on and if you have experience. And these are the reasons that they gave. I noted 4 of them. U.S. suppliers tend to delay their quotations in anticipation of tariff changes. And one of them said to me, well, because they don't know, they might wake up in the morning and the president change the tariff. So they are very reluctant to give you a quotation, and then the tariff changes, and it changes, of course, adversarial to them, and that they make a loss. Businessmen don't like to make a loss. They don't like to make a loss at all. So they don't like to project too much in advance. They don't want that. They don't want that. And they observe also that there is a lot of congestion at U.S. ports. There are a lot of congestion. And I asked them, what is really causing that congestion? They said people are the suppliers, buyers, warehouses, distributors. They are stocking up. They are attempting to stock up inventory in an attempt to beat the anticipated tariff, even if there is no news of a new tariff, but they want to stock up inventory less the man in charge the following day levy a new tax on the import. They also said that there are other developments that the suppliers follow. For example, a number of the suppliers, all the suppliers do not use the same accounting system. So, for example, some suppliers might really sell to them because they have a fixed markup. So they might say, okay, I sell you at 200% or 150% markup. That's it. So that, but some of the suppliers, they use what you call in business economics variable markups, meaning that the markup is going to be determined by the actual anticipated price. So therefore that they're not going to give you a quotation on what they paid and the cost of what they paid last month or last week, because of the uncertainty in which we live. There is so much flux, there is so much peaks and troughs, and things are just changing every day. So they want to make sure that they are near to the real costing as possible before they give you a quotation. So in a sense, a lot of that is causing delays. That is delays final orders from your people in the Caribbean and in St. Kitts, and of course the final order, of course, that will be followed by shipping and so on. So you can have delays. So if that continues, you might really have, based on what they are saying to me, you might really have some serious congestion or backlog when it comes to Christmas, because around Christmas time, then the demand increases. So it means that by the last quarter, and October, November, even September, October, November, given the uncertainty now, you got to have to begin to be making your orders and so on. But even if you make your orders, your suppliers, in a sense, they are very careful when, in a sense, to how it's like somebody says, at what point do you close? At what point do you put the stamp on that quotation and say, look, I'm sending it forward? And that, of course, they would be depending on that by the suppliers and whatever. Okay, so the suppliers, therefore, who use fixed markups, of course, they would simply inflate the price or the cost just to compensate by the percentage markup, their percentage markup, to compensate for the fluctuations. Of course, meaning that they may win, they may lose. They may make a big profit, and of course, it depends on what happens at Washington. They could lose. So this is the information that I gathered from the businesses, from the dealers, the people who interface with the suppliers in America. And that is not far-fetched either. It's good, because when I read about what is happening about to the same buying and selling in the American economy itself, the very same thing is happening. In fact, in some cases, I read that in America, even existing inventory, that is not new products, they are marked up just the same as if they were new ones and whatever. I said, I don't know. I suppose our guys here don't do that. I suppose our guys here don't do that. So how do the taxes on imports are finally reflected in the consumer price, in the price that we pay, whether in the dry goods store or whether at TDC, at Horsford, in the supermarket and whatever? How does that happen? And I thought it was nice just to explain that, take a little time to explain that. You see, in any exchange system, and we live in an exchange system, we live in a market system. Our market is where buyers and sellers meet, and people exchange and pay. One makes an offer, the other one accepts, and then if they accept, then there is a payment, and after the payment, of course, there is the settlement. Of course, you know that if the settlement does not take place, it means that the payment is not made. For example, look, a man say, look, I want you to paint my house for me. I want you to paint my house. Say, okay, I'm going to paint the house. I look around, look at it, man. He look at the place and he evaluate and whatever. He say, boy, look, give me $10,000. Give me $10,000 for that job. The other man, the house owner, agrees for $10,000 and whatever. And well, they did not agree. They did not agree for a down payment, or maybe they did agree for mobilization. So that the fellow begins to paint and whatever, and he paints for a week, he paints for 2 weeks and whatever. And then he asks for some money. And the guy say, look, I ain't get paid yet, man. They ain't pay me yet, man. I'm expecting some money from the fellas. The fellas owe me $20,000. I'm expecting money from them, and they're not paying me and whatever. And basically, so what you have here, you have an offer, an acceptance, and the job is been done. But there's no payment. So there's no settlement. So in a sense, you can't do that. Now, that's a betrayal of trust. You just can't do that. It's immoral to do that. It's a lack of trust to do that. And you are distorting the market. And actually what you are doing, you are committing a criminal offense. You cannot do that. Once you have made the man the offer, and he have accepted the offer, and he has begun to execute the project, in a sense, his expectation formation is such that he must be paid. You have to pay him. But of course, he should have been smarter enough to agree on the nature of the payment. That is whether it is going to be into one tranche, 3 tranches, 4 tranches, or whatever, or weekly, or whatever. So, in any system, taxes raise prices. Once government establish a tax, basically price is going to increase, because what the tax does is simply it makes the cost of production higher. That's what it does. It increases the cost of production, and therefore the producer or the maker or whatever, whoever producing the service, whether it's the hairdresser or whatever, the hairdresser, of course, cannot absorb it. So it must be passed on. So except for sales tax and the VAT, which bites you at each stage, it takes time, however, for the tax for you to feel the price increase. Now, in the case of, we're talking about buying goods from one port to another. Now, although the taxes will be placed on that good, it will take some time before it passes through. But why is that? Why is that? Because the price increase has to work its way through what we call the supply chain. Now, what do we really mean by supply chain there? In a practical sense, outside of what we are talking about, the buying and selling, the supply chain really is the chain from production to the consumer or to your table. In other words, say the farmer begins, he grows, and whatever he grows, the food, and the food is, he harvests and whatever, he transports and he sells to whether the vendor or the supermarket, and whatever you get into the supermarket, and that's a supply chain. Now, with what we are talking about here, we are talking about the chain through the manufacturer. Let's take the manufacturer, or say the factory in Thailand or in Japan or in China. So from there into the port, say in Miami. From Miami, of course, you are the dealer, into you, and you into your supermarket. That is if you are Value Mart and Rams or Best Buy, and then onto the supermarket shelf, and people like me and you come to buy. So that the price increases have to work their way through that chain. That is, through the maker or the manufacturer or the factory, as I said a while ago, which buys the producer goods. For example, let us say if Caribbean has to buy some of the ingredients and whatever. If it has to buy some of the ingredients that it makes the beer or whatever, or the malt, or what is used to make the malt. And so therefore, the barley that it uses to make the malt, we call that a producer good. So therefore, this has to be bought from the supplier into that factory that is at Caribbery up there, and then Caribbery is going to do what we call the manufacturing. The manufacturing is changing the nature of the product. From the barley, now it's a drink, and then through to the wholesaler or the distributor, and of course the distributor to maybe a retailer or direct to the consumers, because there are people who you can actually drive to the Caribbean and buy your so many cases of beers or so many cases of malt or thing. You can do that. So that itself is a supply chain. Now for the vehicles, it is the same. For the vehicles, it's the same. And those of you all who bought vehicles during the VAT, there was 2 VAT days. That is the week before Friday, week before and Saturday last week. So a lot of VAT days, and that's great because in a sense it creates activity in the country, and of course it causes circulation. One of these days we are going to speak about activity and circulation. For the vehicles, say the plant, the supply chain, the plant may be in China, Japan, Thailand, wherever Honda has its plant or whatever, and then from the plant it is shipped to, say, a zonal or a regional dealer or regional supplier, and then say, for example, I was told for Honda it's shipped into Panama or Jamaica, and from Jamaica or Panama it is shipped to those of us who want in St. Kitts, those who want in St. Lucia, those who want in Antigua, those who want in Grenada. So this is what we mean by supply chains. And it's big words and big phrases and so on, but that's what it means, okay? Processes, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, until you have it to buy. Now, all these processes are important, because what they do, in developed countries, they are able to track what happened at each stage and how price is increased at each stage, because each stage has its own cost. Remember that. Each stage, the farmer over there has his cost in producing the melon, but the farmer, when he finishes, to take the melon down to value mat or to rums, he has another cost. He has the cost to harvest. He has the cost to transport over there. And then, of course, then he gives it over to value mat or to rums. Rums has an internal cost. They have the cost of handling, the cost of warehousing. They have the cost for warehousing, or perhaps in some cases refrigerating and whatever. And then inside they have other costs. They have to parcel, they have to bundle, they have to price, they have to... So it's a lot of... So all that are different little, if you want, little layers in the supply chain until it reaches you. In developed countries, actually, you can get what you call a producer price index. That is they would look at wholesalers and retailers and see what is happening to price of goods as it reached them and whatever, and they developed indices for that. The same way as you develop consumer price indices and so on. But of course, in our countries in the Caribbean, except for Jamaica, except for Barbados, except for Trinidad, where the statistical capacity of those countries are highly developed. And there was a time that the statistical capacity in St. Lucia was excessively developed too, when a fellow called St. Catherine used to be there in charge of those things. And look, those guys used to do magic. And you could actually get data. Well, not with the same kind of frequency like you would get in Europe or America, but those guys used to produce that. But today you can get that in Jamaica, you can get that in Trinidad, you can get that in Barbados. I suspect a lot of that has to do because of the presence of the university, because the university would be putting pressure on those feeder agencies, because they would be always asking them for data. So it means that, of course, they would have to find the technology, find the manpower, and find whatever to get that done. So that, and also in those countries, the people have very serious appreciation and respect for information and for data. I can tell you that. And they treat data as if it is sacred. And but I can tell you that. I don't want to just go on any wish hunt, but I'm telling you that I have a lot of problem in St. Kitts. A lot of problem getting the most simple statistics. Either they're not giving it or they don't have it. In most cases, they don't have it. But because in most cases, they have the raw data, but they have not collated the data so that they can put it in a form that it can be used to inform decision making. And that's so important, because a growing economy, a growing society require those kind of information. In fact, a lot of even your creditors are very reluctant to do business with you if you cannot get access to that kind of data. So government must ensure that those agencies have the capacity, have the capability to generate those kind of information, because when that does not happen, the country gets a very low grade on doing business. And I remember, I think the last doing business by the World Bank was in 2018, I think so. And St. Kitts was not doing very well. In fact, I have some discussion on that. That will come later on and whatever. And of course, since then, the exercise have been stopped. But I think there are some other people who are doing it. But of course, I expect not with the same kind of level of professionalism and with the level of validity. That's important, validity. That's very, very, very important. Very, very. So I want to just give you an example of how price hikes take place from the supply chain as it passes through each process and to the final consumer. But I want to do a practical, and I'm giving you a practical example of what happens in St. Kitts. A practical example. And I know it's practical because I am quoting from my experience. Now, here is it now. 2 weeks ago, I bought 6 queen-size bed covers. It's a very nice one. This one is beautiful. It's called Blissford. It's a special brand. It's very nice. 6 queen-size bed covers on Amazon. But I want to let you know, made in China. Made in China. So you're already getting the implication. Because Amazon had already given notice 2 weeks after the 2nd of April that the prices will increase. And if you know, if you do business on Amazon, you know the prices have increased. I bought that for $764.64 EC. You know very well, when you buy on Amazon, you can make them charge you in US or they charge you in EC. I think you know that because a lot of people here buy on Amazon. I know that. Yes. Now, shipping and handling, that is, I paid shipping from wherever the Amazon plant into the warehouse in Miami. I paid shipping for that. I'm not even counting that. We paid that. But that is part of the $764.64. Now, from Miami into St. Kitts, outside of the mainland, I was charged for shipping and handling $142 and no cents. $142 and no cents. Customs now, when it arrives here, customs calculate what they call a CIF value. In other words, custom does not calculate on my $764.64. No, sir. What custom does, custom says, I want the cost, I want the insurance, estimated insurance, and I want the freight. So the cost is $764.64. We have the freight, $142. And I think they normally impute a percentage for the insurance. Now, when they get that value, when they get that cost, which we call the CIF value, custom now uses the CIF value to calculate the charges. Get me clear? So the charges begin now. One, for that particular classification, the duty was 25%. And the great thing is custom is a beautiful place. The great thing, you can go online and get everything and whatever, and you can do your calculation and so on. Now, these people are nimble, they are beautiful. And when I'm collecting data and I go to them, I harass them, they are very, very nice. They are magnificent people. Beautiful people. One of the best agencies of government in St. Kitts. Sometimes I just go inside there when I'm doing my research for my clients and I speak with them, and the people out there among the supervisory, those in high, and they give me time. I want to thank you all guys, and I want to show my respect and whatever. But of course, remember your duty, the duties and the this and the what you do is not you. I'm not shooting you. You are only doing your job. So the duty is 25%. VAT is 17%, and they charge you a custom service charge, which is 6%. So that now remember, be careful, be careful. I have always said that, and I have argued that in conferences and whatever on papers. People say, oh, this is we have no tax, we have no income tax in this country, We have no income tax, man, and whatever, boy, we have no income tax and whatever. But your tax, you can call it by any name that you want, You can call it dev due, you can call it license, you can call it fees, you can call it... All of these are different names for tax, or the price that you pay. So that duty is a tax, VAT is a tax, the custom service charge, you call it charge, is a tax. So the total tax rate is 48% on the 6 queen side bed cover. And then custom calculate, they gave me my bill, and I have the bill. It all came up to $427.16. But remember that $427.16, that's plus the $142 I paid for shipping and handling. So for a household item, now remember it's a household item, not a business. A household item, the householder must pay more than half of the cost of the item to the government. Get me very, very clear. For a household item, the householder must pay, in that case, in my case, more than half of the cost of the item to the government. So what is the landed cost to to the householder / importer, and that's me. It was $764.64 plus $142 plus $427.16. And notice I'm not even accounting for what is the percentage that they charge for the insurance in the CIF. And that gives $1,343.80. So the landed cost to me, in other words, for me to land that 6 pillow covers, that bed cover in St. Kitts, even if it cost me $764, which included shipping on the mainland, when it reaches here, if it will cost me, it did cost me $1,343.80. Now, let's change it. Here is the market reality. Let's change it from the individual. It means that if the importer was not me, but it was a business owner, his landed cost for the 6 queen-size bed cover on Amazon made in China would be $1,343.80. Now, I want you to follow me now. I am moving to get to a conclusion here. Now, since he runs a business, he's not me, he runs a business, he must cover his overhead. Electricity, rent, and water, and internet, and this and that. And he must be able to make a profit. And why he must make a profit? It's because he needs to get working capital, and he needs to get a return on his investment, what that keeps him in business. So he adds a markup. He adds a markup. He must add the markup, or if not, he must get out of business. Now, note carefully. Note carefully. For him to arrive at the markup percentage, he's in trouble. He is in trouble. Why is he in trouble? Because he must make sure his overhead is covered. And he must make sure he has money to buy inventory and stock again for next month. And of course, he must have money for himself to eat. That is his profit. But, note carefully, electricity is high. High-speed internet, although it does not work most of the time, and I'm a victim of that, I just went over there to them and make a complaint. Every time I'm going there, I pay for high-speed internet, but high-speed internet just not working. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Or sometimes it's showing you it's working, but you can't get connection. You can't get the page. High-speed internet is high. Rental rate around Bastille is ridiculous. If you are renting around Bastille, the rate is ridiculously overpriced. And the government have just increased minimum wage. So all of that he has to think of. So the markup percentage must reflect all these costs of doing business, because all this add up to his cost of doing business. So before you begin to kill people and say, oh, these people are this and they are that, and they are taking people's eyes off and so on. Some of them are doing that. And they are killing people. They have no conscience and so on, so on. So I thought I needed to just explain those reality, the real things. So let's assume that the businessman, after considering all those factors, he decided, oh, I will impose a 1% markup. So the business cost of purchasing the 6 beds would be not $1,343.80, but now it would be $2,000 $2,951.60. I hope I did it right. It's twice the cost. I think it's more less than that. Is it? Yes. Multiply by 2, that is 2. 2 3 is 6. 2 3 is 6. 2 3 is 6. 2 3 is 6. That is a 2,667 or whatever. And okay about that. So it means, therefore, the selling price per bed cover would be that amount divided by 6 per unit. So which means, therefore, he is now only able to sell this one bed sheet for over $400. He bought initially 6 bed sheets for $764, but right now he's forced to sell it for over $400 per unit. So what is the explanation? What explains the price hikes, therefore, in St. Kitts? And before I do that, I'm going to open the phone when I'm finished. I wanted to give you that. So what explains the price hike in St. Kitts using that example I have just given? What are the supply chain processes that induce inflation in St. Kitts and Nevis based on the example that I have given? One, they are imported prices or foreign price, plus high government taxes, plus high markups by the local business owners. And I have explained what contribute to the high markups. So what causes inflation in St. Kitts based on the example I have given? One, foreign traders, government, and local business operators. So while a lot of our inflation is imported, a lot of our price hike is caused by government and the markups or the profit margins of business operators. So here is the forecast that the industry gave me. I am going to close on that and open the line. The conventional wisdom, according to them, in the local market is that consumers in St. Kitts and Nevis should brace themselves to feel the inflationary effect of the U.S. sweeping high taxes on imports entering the U.S. by Christmas into the new year. I have tried my best to labor this thing and to give you an appreciation. We are going to take a break, an advertisement break. When we come back, we are going to open the line, and I want to hear your views.
Hey, Webmaster here. I stay connected to Freedom with the Freedom SKN app. Simply search for the Freedom app in the Android's Play Store or the Apple's App Store and download it. Enjoy world-class radio at its best, anytime, anywhere. Become a Freedom apper today.
Reliable, dependable, Delta. If you live here in St. Kitts and your tank on E, there's only one place that you should be. Maybe driving in Nevis and you need some fuel. Go straight to Delta. Don't be a fool. Get your cooking gas fast. All petroleum needs ULSD. Everyone in the region is shouting, go Delta. Premium gasoline in a fully stocked C-store. So there's only one place you should be. Delta Petroleum, baby.
From the bench to the palm of your hand, Betgate Sports brings to you iGaming, the ultimate dual gaming experience. Sports and iGaming in one powerful platform, live and legal. Tap your screen, place a bet, spin the reels, cash out fast. No delays, pure excitement! BetCageSports.com. Download the app and sign up today. Play responsibly. Must be 21 and over. Proud sponsor of Cricket West Indies, where a percentage of every dollar played with Cage goes to Windies for cricket and cricket development.
RIA Easy Money Transfer Limited, located on West Independence Square Street, Bastyr St. Kitts, and the Solomon Arcade Nevis, offers you safe and reliable transfers at great low rates and fees to 507,000 locations worldwide, with a pickup time of just 15 minutes after your transfer. And for even more ease of doing business, we home deliver and direct bank deposits in selected countries. So if anytime you want to send money to family, friends, and loved ones, at RIA, we've got you covered with over 30 years of experience moving money quickly, efficiently, and securely across 160 countries. Give us a call at 465-3325 in St. Kitts or 469-3325 in Nevis. Opening hours Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 8:30 in Nevis, and on Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. RIA Easy Money Transfer Limited.
Back to school shouldn't meet you unprepared. St. Kitts Credit Union's Back to School Loan helps you borrow up to $10,000 with flexible repayment plans, fast approval, supportive terms. Invest in your child's future with confidence, because every child deserves a strong start. Start today at www.skccu.com or call 465-2272. SKCU, invested in their future with you.
Hey, Webmaster here. I stay connected to Freedom with the Freedom SKN app. Simply search for the Freedom app in the Android's Play Store or the Apple's App Store and download it. Enjoy world-class radio at its best, anytime, anywhere. Become a Freedom apper today.
Yeah, we are back now. You're listening to Issues on Freedom FM 106.5. This is Issues with Coach Adrian. We are discussing the impact of the U.S. sweeping taxes on imports on St. Kitts, and we are giving an industry report as to what is happening thus far. What I did with you was to do an exercise using 6 bed covers and look at what were at each of the stages, what contributed to the price, the high price. We saw that the bedspreads were bought at $764, but you're forced now to sell each unit, that each bed cover, for over $444. We are opening the line, and we conclude that in that case, that inflation is induced by high price overseas, by high government taxes, and by the high markups of businesses. The number to call is 662-1065, 465-6474, 465-0546, 662-1065, 465-6474, or 465-0546. So the argument that we have made here is simply that whereas that a lot of our inflation is induced from our trading partner, that high government taxes in the Caribbean and in St. Kitts contribute significantly to the high price. You on air, please. You on air.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Boy, I have not heard you for a long time. Where have you? How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine and giving God thanks. I listen to you.
But what happened, man? I keep on calling you, man. The last time I pass by you, I drive by you. I don't know.
How much was it
I
in the
even
bedroom
knocked the
or
place.
whatever?
I didn't hear any answer. What happened? You okay?
Yes, sir. Okay, man. Just keep praying for me.
Yeah, man. But you.
Now, I appreciated the presentation you did this afternoon.
Talk to me. Talk to me. Take your time and talk to me.
I think you should start at the commodity market and the capital market. Because, you know, they often set the price even before the goods are manufactured. Now, with all of the uncertainty in the U.S. government, it makes planning difficult. You know, I watch Bloomberg every day, right? And the traders are unsettled. You never know when. Then you have the exchange rate, the interest rate, where Trump is trying to cover his tracks. You know, and but I am thinking, what our governments could do is there are certain what we call commodities that we consume, rice and whatever. They should assist some of the importers to stockpile.
Okay. Say it again. Run that again.
I am saying help can be given to some of the importers to stockpile the goods when they're at a certain price.
All right. Cool. Go on. Cool.
You don't think so?
No, I'll comment after. Take your time. I'm
yes,
writing
they had
what you are
the
saying.
supply office where they used to bring in the rice and the basic rice, flour, sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Those, I think, need some help. And they have the industrial site up there, you know. Some of them say, well, we don't have enough room to store. But we have the buildings and everything. The government have the ability to stockpile and release. Because with Trump's unstable, you don't know, and the government is now in such a financial bind. They can no longer talk about 60% of the recurrent revenue is financed from the CBI. They lack the backup. So I think they could do that.
Go on. Say your thing. I'm writing all of them. I'll respond to you. Go on.
No, I'm just thinking about it. And we as consumers, having gone through that whole scenario, we could do without a lot of stuff. Christmas is coming doesn't mean you're about to buy, you know. Amazon and all of them saying, look, they're going to close out some markets. Because they can't afford to pay the people to package and ship the things. And with the shipping costs so fluctuating so often. Now, if you're going for Hamas, you know that they what do you call it? The policy. If they're making war with the ports to which our goods pass, they add into it, and then they turn around and deport our people. You know, so they're complicating the matter. So I am saying to the Ministry of Trade, and furthermore, some of these goods we use can be sourced in the Caribbean, you know. Guyana grow rice. We love rice, eh? Brazil does do the meat. We got to begin to look at different sources. So some of these importers, they're accustomed to get the thing from Canada or whatever. They're not assisting. All they have to do is look around, investigate the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. That should be their job, to try and locate cheaper sources for the commonly used goods. That's what I have to say for now. Good afternoon to everybody.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. I think the caller has raised some. Is there anybody else? The caller has raised some very important points, and I just want to highlight a few of them. Just respond to a few of them. Highlight a few of them. Let's take the first one. Stockpile. Now that is what the industry told me that the suppliers are doing over in America. Now they are stockpiling, so as to forestall new tariff that might be imposed. But it's easier for them to stockpile. It's not that easy for our wholesalers and distributors here, or our buyers here, to do that, because the buyers told me what is happening to them now. They are not getting the goods with the kind of flow through the supply chain that they want, because the fellas are holding back, some of them, because one, they are reluctant to push through the quotations with the same speed that they used to do before the tariff, the advent of the tariff. And secondly, he said that you have a lot of, they said there is a lot of congestion at the ports. And the congestions I read outside of the stockpiling is also in the other form, that is, the regulator, the superintendent of the goods that come to the ports, they are subject to more rigid inspection, and therefore this is causing a lot of backlog. So you have two kinds of backlog. You have the excessive superintending, and then you have the stockpiling, which cause congestion. Now, the thing is, here's the other issue that that you raised, Sylvain, that government should help the buyers, the dealers, the importers, or the Chamber of Commerce, or the supermarkets, the wholesalers, to stockpile. You see, but if government try to do that, they can get themselves into a serious predicament. I'll tell you why. Here is the issue. At this stage, with the uncertainty, or what we call in economics, with the peaks and the trough, the endless zigs and zags that are in the market, the market is such that you cannot predict what price that our fellows here are going to pay. And therefore, even if you want to regulate price, look, even if, for example, I remember I have the whole list of regulated goods, so-and-so, Vienna sausage, this and that, and this and that, and this and that. But with what is happening there, the buyers are not even certain as to what price they're going to pay. And therefore, when they get the item and they apply at the landed cost, and they apply the profit margin, which allows them to stay in business, I am not sure that they have a lot of control about keeping that price down. I'm not too sure of that. Now, I'm being very guarded, and I'm not here on any crusade for Chamber of Commerce. I'm not there on anything. But I am just being very empirical in what I am saying. So because of the fluctuation in price, and not fluctuation, because fluctuation means it's going up and down, because of the spiraling of price continually, if government do that, government will only do that with the intention that it will lower the end price for the consumer. For when you and me go into the supermarket, we'll be able, therefore, to buy things more reasonable. Government can't guarantee that. And Rams and ValueMet and Best Buy, they cannot guarantee that. They can't. So what came to my mind is what one of the callers called last week and said. He said at one time there was Simaco, a retail outlet, wholesale retail outlet owned by government. When I came here in 1991, it was so. Now, I'm not saying that that is going to be an answer. But if ever government wants to subsidize an operation, it can only subsidize an operation over which it has a decision-making over. Government, it would be foolish of government to subsidize RUMS and value mat stockpiling. They're gonna still put heavy end unit prices on you. One, because of the markup, as I have shown there, and secondly, because they, in some cases, they cannot do otherwise, because they are taking the high price from overseas, and government taxes are very high, because in a sense, government causes inflation. All right. The other one that that you mentioned, you talk about the shipping, getting the things redirect the shipping. Now the good thing about this whole thing is that the CARICOM was able to lobby the House and Senate in the United States, and they were able to get exemption from, because you remember the administration levy a special fee on ships that are Chinese made. So that is why, for example, the industry explained to me where Honda is made in China, it doesn't necessarily for distribution in the Caribbean. And this was happening even before the sweeping tariff. It doesn't go to Miami. I used to think so. It either goes to the distribution center in Panama or in Jamaica. So from there, then it would come down to the dealer in St. Kitts, the dealer in St. Lucia, the dealer in Grenada, and so on, so and so and so and so. One good point that Sylvain made, and that is very, very important, that is you must explore the whole issue of import substitution. And import substitution, are there things that we are importing from the United States that comes from other countries through the United States that we can get from the Caribbean, but maybe we are not doing? And of course, that quickly brings an issue into mind, the issue of product quality. And you can say whatever you want. The consumer also wants a good price, but the consumer also wants quality. So the product quality is very important, and the consumer must feel that, look, I want to buy that particular item. It's available, made in Trinidad, or made in St. Kitts, or made in Jamaica, or made in Guyana, but is it of the same quality of what I bought made in China and whatever? So that these are decisions, part of the whole decision process of the consumer. And in a free market, he or she has the right to make those kind of determination. That is very, very important. But the issue of intra-trade, I think, is a very good issue. This issue have been raised all the time. And by now, governments have been doing something about that. For example, there was the whole initiative. It didn't work, or is not working as it should. CARICOM came up with the 20-25-25 plan. That was particularly for food, because, you know, we import almost 80% of what we want to consume stuff from North America. And then the hope was to cut down the Caribbean food import bill by 25% in 2025. And a lot of monies and technical support was given throughout CARICOM countries, CARICOM member countries, in St. Kitts and whatever and everywhere, so that farmers and whatever would be producing agribusiness and so on. So I don't know much about that. The last time I spoke to my friends at Lagrit, they were not scheduled to meet target, and I suspect that's not going to happen. And a lot of that, of course, apart from the logistics and so on, a lot of that also is contributed by, I suppose, weather conditions and so on. So, and maybe maybe it's working better in Dominica, in places like Dominica, St. Lucia, and so on. But in St. Kitts, it's rather dry. It's rather dry. The guys up in the mountains and whatever, the guys up in the mountains, if they, I suppose they get more wet condition and whatever, but I can tell you, generally, it would be easier for those countries down south in the windwards, for perhaps if they are organized to meet those kind of targets. But speaking to the vendors who are involved in the food sales on a weekly basis from Dominica and from St. Vincent. In fact, some of them told me since the hurricanes, they have had to get some of their foods out of St. Lucia. And if you're talking about St. Lucia, I know St. Lucia just is not producing not even 1/10 of the kind of agricultural produce that it used to. In fact, if you go to St. Lucia and you drive through the countryside, most of the rural economy is decimated. People have moved out of the land and they are in the city looking for work, or if they can't get work, that's where they want to be. And the governments have done nothing to diversify the country. Everything is still down in caste trees. Everything is in caste trees and whatever. And to some extent, that's what the government do in St. Kitts. Just that St. Kitts is not as would not be as negatively impacted as a country in St. Lucia, because the country is smaller. And basically, there is no town and country in St. Lucia, so to speak. You can drive around in 40 minutes, and whatever. So Diet Bay is just right over there. Sometimes when I want to cool off, I just drive around the island and I come back. And basically, I do that in 40, and if I linger, about an hour. So the thing that I'm talking about is, even then, everything is still in Bastille. People everywhere must come down to Bastille to look for work and to get some kind of sustenance. So that is the kind of issue you have to address, so that if you build the rural economy, what you are doing in a sense, that is the first stage for diversifying the economy. You got to build the rural economy. That's very, very, very important. Okay, so let me move on now. Let me move on. It is 2:42, and I am going to say a few things as to how we can combat the inflation, and then, okay, we'll take that call. You on air, please? If you're on air, we'll take you before I move on. All right. Then I'm going to begin the series at whatever point. I'm going to start the series and continue next week. So you are listening to Freedom FM 106.5. We are broadcasting out of Sugar City, St. Kitts, and this is Issues with Coach Adrian. People meet me on the street and they ask me, look, somebody's on air. If you're on air, we take you right away. You're on air, please.
Coach
Hello.
Adrian, good afternoon.
Yes.
Yes. You hear me?
Yeah, yes, I'm hearing you. Go on.
Right. Good afternoon to all the listeners. Yeah. Let me just finish up the summer, then we'll get back to what you're dealing with right now. When you may brush up last week, you made them the professional way. Okay, you asked if I will make that one somebody over there that represents the what the bank I'm thinking name.
Talking about
The name of the
bank? Which bank are you talking about?
The overall bank. The overall. Okay. Anyway,
The central bank is the overall bank.
Central bank.
Caribbean Central Bank. Yeah.
Right, yes.
And it's not a bank like a commercial bank. It's a bank. It is a statutory authority. It regulates. It is the one responsible for maintaining and policing them and whatever, and issuing the dollar. In other words, it is, if you want, the umpire of all banks.
Right. Exactly. You're right, Pampa. So, you remember, when me tell you, you may say that if I can representative, yes, I can representative. But guess what? And the representative still, so the government give the representative the information. The representative can really change what the government give, the stats that the government give. So you just what I mean. You understand that?
I'm not getting you well. I'm not getting you well. When you say the central bank represent the government, that's what you're saying?
Yeah. So remember last week, me tell you that the data no reflect the ground.
Yes. I know. I know you're the man. You are the man. I'm following that. Yes, but you don't mind if I speak to you. That's okay.
Yeah, of course, man. I will interrupt.
So if you don't mind that, that's all right. The central bank is the government bank. If there was, for example, only one country, like in the case of Barbados or Jamaica or Trinidad, the central bank would be a department of the Ministry of Finance. But in the Eastern Caribbean, we agree that all the 8 countries would come together and share one central bank. So the government is represented on the highest making body, the council, and the government is represented on the board. Now, go on.
Right. That's exactly what we want to hear. Right? So you're going to see how we argue. What we made last week. And it might hurt some politicians now. So that really who dictate what they dictate. You know, that's ministry. Not one for them. But the point about it, them want things look like something go on for them, and they want related. So they're saying something that don't even reflect them. So then the government doesn't know get his hat and ground. So to he, I mean, the department here, not saying kids, so the department and the monster, or the department and the I do well. But then the citizens now can see whatsoever he read out to we. You get that? You follow me, Adrian?
Yes, I'm taking notes. Yes.
Exactly. So that's what we missed last week. So he read out some stats, Gary. And I say, Monshek doing well on talk. Monshek doing well on this. So that's what me and we say, suppose we left me in one that we should run on Monshek. These things that you got on the panic slide, you know. But then the politicians need to look good. And I can do it well. That's a bad start. Na mind book. You get that?
Yes.
And it's just like sometimes we just listen to this parliament. And then you would hear how you do road. But still, you still hear citizens and think it's now up on the road. I complain. You agree with me?
Let's go on. I'm writing down for me to respond. Yes.
Right. Because what happened now, they might probably do one road. And being honest, then now, when they go write up something now for the central, either they square mileage more than what the road be or whatsoever the case may be. But the whole point about it is that according to what come over back from there, you wait on the road and actually see exactly what the governor they talk about. But that are the stats that he gets. Okay then, Adrian. They call you back.
All right. Now I'm trying to decipher what he's saying there, and I wrote a few things down there, and I hear him to be saying that and I'll discuss on the first thing. I hear him to be saying, one, he questioned the quality of the information that the central bank give on the country or the economy of Montserrat. So he brought that back again. We'll talk about that. Then he spoke about doing well, and I think what he meant there is the government, the central bank would have discussed growth, that is GDP, whatever. I want to talk a little about that. And then he spoke about that the politicians, and of course Montserrat is very unique, and we must, I was explaining that to somebody who in some forum, was it in the media center or in a press conference we were, and I was trying to explain to somebody, be careful about what they are saying, because Montserrat is at this point so disadvantaged that the British just does not want to inject any money into Montserrat. And when you look at the British argument, it makes sense. They say it doesn't make sense to build infrastructure because once you don't have the critical mass, you don't have, and they prefer them to empty the country now, empty the country and come to England. Although I don't think it's because they love them, because they're sending people out of England. But the point is, it's easier on their budget if they empty the country and come to England, and it will be less burdensome if they go into. Because let me tell you something. If you have 200 houses, if you have 2,000 houses, if you have 2 or 4 houses, they all need the same kind, or let's say if you have 20 houses, let's say in St. Peter's, it needs the same infrastructural cost, because government must still get electricity into St. Peter's. Government must still get water from whatever source into St. Peter's. So the point that we are saying, the roads must go there just the same for the same 20 as it must go for 200. So the government of England said they tired of that. They don't want to do that. And one professional and diehard native of Montserrat, he spoke to me and he explained that very well to me. And I was very surprised because he's one who's very fond of staying in Montserrat. And then he concluded telling me that the people need to leave Montserrat. And he was saying, I hear him saying that the politicians there, because remember it is in Montserrat, it is one constituency, and if there are 2 or 3 or 4 parties, they all contend for. Now that sounds so comical because I studied politics in so many different stages. I never heard that. One constituency and 2 or 3 or 4 parties, they all contending for the same and whatever. So that I suppose the same number of people, if it is 100 people, 200 people, they are voting over and over and over. Now, I don't know that I have studied so much politics. From Hobbes into Marx and into everything, into Lenin. I never see that. Karl Stone, I never see it. Now, here's the point that he's talking about. He said the politicians like the idea that the central bank said that Montserrat is doing well, that Montserrat is performing well, that is those who are in power at the time, incumbent, because they need to sell that, because they need to be re-elected. That is what I am hearing him to be saying. Now, so in other words, but his argument is they are using wrong information which is endorsed by the central bank to make mileage out of it. Now, let me just try to be very level-minded on that. Just to explain the issue of growth. When we measure growth, which is expressed in the gross domestic product, GDP, what we are actually doing, that the GDP is the dollar value, the net dollar value of all that is produced or all that is expended in a particular year. So what you are doing, you are measuring the dollar value of one year to another year. Let us say, for example, if in 2023, the dollar value was such that, say it was $100. Now, if in 2024, the dollar value is $100.05, in essence, what you are showing is that the country grew. The country, Montserrat, grew by 5% between 2023 and 2024. Now, 5% growth in any textbook is a magnificent growth, because 3% growth is a brilliant growth. 4% growth is excellent. So 2.5, 2.3% growth is beautiful. So the thing is, if you take that 5% and you run with it, you will be making a fool of yourself. And I'll tell you how you'll make a fool of yourself. You know, there is a book that you can look for and buy it. It is called How to Lie with Statistics. There, check it out on Amazon. How to Lie with Statistics. Meaning that what the numbers, the GDP is showing here, it is the aggregate production or whatever in 2024 was higher than that in 2023 by 5%. But what is that aggregate in the context of Montserrat, where you have a handful of people? So that is what you have to be careful with. So you can take that now and say, okay, Montserrat grew by 5%, but look at St. Kitts. The St. Kitts they're talking about, they're boasting about St. Kitts. St. Kitts is a first world economy. And look at how it grew. It grew by 1.5%. They don't know what they're doing. We're better than them. You would be extremely stupid to make statement like that. You would be very foolish. You would be misdirecting people, and you would be giving people false information. And not only that, you would be propagandizing. Now, if that is what the central bank presented to them, I'm very disappointed. That's all I can say. But what I'm going to do with this young man or whatever, I'm going to ask to see that report. I would love to see that report. I don't know if it's just a presentation by the governor. I may never be able to see it. But what I will do, I will go on the central bank website, and I will do that for next week. It's not part of the series I want to do, but since it is raised, I'm going to go on the website and I'm going to get the Montserrat quarterly and annual report, and then I'm going to do some analysis, and maybe next time if my guy calls, I can say something. Now, guys, it's a pity that our time has come to an end. We have spoken. I had some other things to say about how to combat inflation. So we're going to leave that for next week. And when we finish that, we go into our new topic. Remember that we have our new topic coming up, that series, and that series is prepared, but we have not been able to enter into it because each time we are not finishing the discussion that is on the table. But it doesn't matter for me because that is what I said, how I'm going to approach it. I want to just thank all the callers, the listeners. Then today, we actually went into a little detail because I wanted to do some practical arithmetic to show you what is happening with inflation in St. Kitts and who are the contributors to the high prices, that the high prices are not just contributed as a result of the high markups of the operators, the business operators, but high government taxes are causing the prices to be high just the same, of course, and of course, the imported inflation. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for those who contributed to the research that I have used, and I thank you to those who have listened. I'm hoping that next week we can, certainly next week, we are going to go into our new topic, the series. We will do a little tail off of what we have missed, and then we do our series. So thanks very much. You have been listening to Freedom FM 106.5, Issues with Coach Adrian. It was a joy to have you, and I look forward for next Monday at 1:30, same time, same place. Bye-bye.
Freedom FM is live.